I don't know if you remember Laron, my son's godbrother, but he also went through a divorce with his wife, and he also has two girls, which he calls his two queens, which is awesome. I love it. And I did, sit down and ask him a few questions. And that was just something for him to meditate on. And he did give us a response. And I have the questions that I asked LaRon, and I asked him, as a father of girls, how has divorce changed the way you show up emotionally? And we talked about our emotions, and I just think it's really good to hear from a male, and because they don't always show us their emotion.
Right.
So I did want to make sure that we had a male perspective for the males that have also, going through divorce. And then I asked him for, not just for the girls, but for yourself. And I asked him what he had to unlearn about vulnerability, because in society, we don't see men as soft or vulnerable or anything like that. Let's tune in and let's listen to what LaRon has to say.
As a father of young queens going through divorce, showing up emotionally for my daughters has changed over the years. At first, the separation happened about 5 years ago. It was around August of 2020. And the separation was, from a physical aspect, not even that far away. I was in our home, and my daughter's mother and our two daughters were at her parents' house about 5 minutes down the road. But I underestimated the amount of pain and also the amount of anxiety, like separation anxiety, that infused from just not being in the same household as them, having to go back and forth from the houses, was very, very stressful for me. And over time, it did get better. I was able to heal, but there were just certain instances and certain, I guess you could say, even disagreements that caused me to relapse, where I would isolate myself from everyone. And that happened sometimes every couple weeks, every couple months. And it was always very difficult for me to express that to my daughters, because before we had those issues, like any separation, anything that was going on, I would, inform them, especially with me. And it would typically be done face to face. Once we separated, though, I found myself, developing a relationship with them over the phone or through FaceTime. And to this day, it has always been difficult for me to express my emotions, problems with depression and separation anxiety, with them over the phone. I'm thankful, though, that over time, I went through therapy. I had multiple counselors. I had a counselor when we were together, then two counselors even after we had separated. And that also, I realized too, was part of the reason why I had relapses, was because when I either changed jobs or lost certain jobs, I lost insurances that didn't allow me to have my EAP program for therapy. So I was very thankful for my therapist that even though when I did lose those programs, I was able to afford more sessions with them. But then after a certain amount of time, I wasn't. And that's why I was very, very thankful for my parents and my roommates. My family home is very, very supportive, very, very, very helpful, and very consoling to even neighbors as well. But the idea behind knowing that I failed as a parent was something I was not prepared to ever experience, because actually up until that point of the separation, of course I had made mistakes as a parent. Nobody's perfect, but my biggest fear was always, or fears, was either to be in a situation where I couldn't save my kids or to let them down. Like I had vowed to myself that I never wanted to do that. I knew that, it was bound to happen, but I really wanted to make sure I did everything in my power for it not to. And for it to happen multiple times was a struggle for me. Very, very much a struggle. Very thankful now, though, to be on great terms, on much better terms with my daughter's mother, to where, I see them multiple times a week, have them on various weekends out of the month, which is great. But there were some tough times. There were definitely some tough times. But the main thing that I had to grasp, and I still work on to this day, is that transparency with them, and knowing that, like, there's some things that they are too young to understand, but things that they're not, and that I just have to work on explaining or giving them explanations in terms that they'll understand. Because my daughters are 8 and 6, and when we first separated, they were, I think, with 2020, so they're about like 2 and 3, give or take. And my youngest daughter, actually, is kind of funny to think about. It was normal for her because, like, at her age, it was kind of normal to not even see her mom and dad really together like that. But our oldest daughter took it very, very hard, which was that was the first emotional breakdown that I experienced. Is that very first time when I dropped them off, and my oldest daughter did not want me to leave, and like I witnessed her like have like a whole emotional panic breakdown. And even though I stayed strong for her in the house, after I closed that door, not even before I even walked to my car, I just broke down in tears because I wasn't prepared for that. Definitely wasn't prepared for that. Thankfully, though, that got easier over time. And also, what was really helpful, I found out too, is because she also suffered from some separation anxiety from the family dog at the time. So I was thankful that my daughter's mother was okay with me bringing the dog when we had our little daddy-daughter date times. And that helped her a lot as far as, like, leaving and coming back and things like that. So, but it is, though, really difficult to express pain, after those separations. And I know that in a lot of, societal mindsets, it's not okay for men, to express that pain in a safe environment. But I think it's amazing now that there are a lot of, what I've seen from my perspective, there are a lot of avenues, whether that be online or even in person, for men to come together. I even created a couple of groups. We called it Divorced Dads, where we would get together at least once or twice a month and meet up at, like, either a bar or at somebody's house and, play games, stuff like that. But we would talk and ask, like, genuinely, how are you doing? How are you feeling? And just creating those safe, nurturing environments where there's no fear or a fear of embarrassment to express your emotions. Because I know for me, it's very difficult for me to, like, even create when I'm in a depressive state. That's my natural self is extroverted self, where I just love people, love family, homies, everybody. But when I'm in that sad mental state, I'm just in the bed. I'm at home. I'm not answering my phone, which I'm very, very happy that in the last few years I've graduated now to where when I do get in those sad states, at least, I talk to my mom and dad, I talk to my roommates. Because there was that one point in time, like, where one of my roommates didn't hear from me for like 4 days. Like, we live in the same house, and I avoided him and her, two roommates at the time. I would, like, only move around in the house to go upstairs into the kitchen when I knew they were asleep, just because I didn't want to interact with them. And then that one time where I think I was in my room for like 3 days straight, he finally took it upon himself to come in my room and wake me up and check up on me, which I needed that. Because honestly, if he didn't tap my leg that day, my ankle, I don't know when I would have got out of bed. So very, very thankful for that, for him and all my family and my faith too, because I do believe in prayer, believe in a higher power, and I do believe in being thankful to that faith, not just for my life, but the lives of others in our universe. So, but yeah, I experienced a lot of growth. I'm very thankful for that growth, and thankful for my young queens growing as fast as they do. So, but that's my 2 cents.
We don't see the man's side because they may go into their hole, because they were taught men don't cry.
Right.
And I asked him, do he think men have that safe space? Now, I do think there's a shift with the generation for men to start having safe spaces, but not every man feels that way, because we do have those manly men.
Right.
They don't want to show that because they were taught to be that protector, that provider. You don't cry, you don't do this. So, but I am glad to see that there are some groups for divorced men and not just women. What would you say to another man who's afraid to express the pain after divorce?
For any man who is having issues expressing their pain after divorce, the main thing I would say to them is that it's okay to feel that way. That fear or even that sense of embarrassment, I think it's perfectly fine to be in that type of headspace, just because expressing your emotions and feelings already, if that's not something that you've done regularly, especially after a divorce that involves children, you can't have that sense of difficulty when it comes to expressing how you feel. After relating to them to know that it's okay to feel that way, I would then ask them, is there any one person, family, friend, confidant, that they have the ability to be vulnerable with? Because not everybody has that person or that group. I was thankful enough to always have that. Even though I've had that my entire life, I still had that struggle of isolating myself to not speaking about my feelings and emotions and the thoughts that I had. But in the past, from a societal perspective, I've always had this thought process that men didn't have enough safe spaces to express themselves or just to feel. But in recent times, from my perspective of my friend circles, it's actually made me very happy to see that that's changed to where there's been more acceptance of allowing men to express themselves from an emotional standpoint. Because, of course, historically, that's typically seen as not being okay. That's you're soft, you're a punk. But emotions are human. Like that's what makes us human. Those types of feelings and thoughts, pain. Everybody has pain, no matter who you are, what social class, demographic, what part of the planet you're on. Everybody feels pain. But having those spaces to express your pain is valuable. And granted, I can only really speak from my own connections, that multiple circles within my family, within my friend groups, have created communities and groups for us to express ourselves after breakups, divorce, separations from our kids, and things like that. But outside of those groups that me and my friends and family have made, say, I don't know really what the dynamic of the barbershop is now, or the bar, or like those spaces where men typically get together. I'm not sure if those spaces are safe spaces for men to express their emotions. I know that it's great to see that therapy has been more widely accepted in current times, but outside of that, I can't really say if I know spaces personally. But that is something that I definitely would like to learn more about, because I'm all for men having those safe spaces to be vulnerable, be transparent about how they feel and what emotions that they have.
That was amazing. And I felt like he put a lot into his responses. He actually gave us those heartfelt, deep responses. And the questions that I asked, he did have to sit and think with those for a while to pull that out. And it is amazing to see a man express those. Thank you and for sitting with us today. Thank you for letting us hold this space. Thank you for listening with your heart and just seeing yourself through the words that we shared. Softness isn't easy, but it's necessary. And if anything else, I hope this episode reminds you of that you don't have to hide any part of what you feel. Be tender, be soft, be all of those things, because you deserve that. You deserve all of it. So also join us next week. And next week, it's just gonna be me and the mic. We're gonna take it kind of slow. This episode is solo. It's called Held, Not Fixed. And I'll be sharing some of my personal reflections. And that means I'm gonna also be showing my vulnerability during this time. So I hope to all see you here next week for episode 3. And until then, this is Lady Blue with Blue Notes and Body Talk.
Cracks a conversation, the body recalls what the mind buried. Letting off flow with no filters and no mask to carry.
Can we talk? A safe space you can share your thoughts. No pressure, just let down your guard. Let's talk it out, don't hold it in, just let it out. We all need release, it's what it's all about.
Get your mind, body, and soul ready for therapeutic sessions. So
can we